Hi, I'm Sam Castor. I created Lex Lumina, which means law and light, to be a beacon of light in the sludge of YouTube. There are so many algorithms that are designed to agitate us, to make us uncomfortable, to make us feel like we're not enough. This is a conversation platform where we meet with people who are creating light and are showcasing that every human has the capacity to create light. Even you do. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share, and let's change the world together. You and I met at a political fundraising event.
We did, absolutely.
Which was really fun.
It was.
And I feel like we just had like an immediate
I agree.
affinity
Absolutely,
for
yeah,
each other,
absolutely.
So I'm
very drawn to you.
Well, same. And I'm thrilled that you're on this show today. So.
Oh, well, thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
It's neat to be here.
Well, so this is totally authentic and raw. We just kind of go through stuff.
That's great. Yeah.
I want to talk about your life path, who you are, like
Okay.
how you ended up where you are, and then what you believe, what's your why, some of your mantras. You have some cool mantras I love.
Thank you.
And then this is one of those moments where you just kind of tell your story.
Whatever I say, I'll be accountable for.
Well, that's fair.
That's right.
That adds to the authenticity. That's the currency of today, right? Is realness.
And I do think, well, I think one of the things that I would caution you about is that I speak for a living. So
I do too.
I have a tendency to go on. So
I do too.
You might have to remind me to zip it.
No, you're fine.
And like, for example, in the Episcopal tradition, 12 minutes is probably a ballpark sermon.
Yeah, that's good.
Look, but the thing of it is, I can be up there like a Southern Baptist. I can be up there for like 24, 25. My last congregation had a wonderful man named Randy who sat in the very back, and sometimes I just in my mind I'd be in the middle of my sermon. 15 minutes. I hear Randy from the back. Thank you, Randy.
Everybody needs a Randy from the back.
That's right.
Everybody
absolutely.
needs that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Well, it's funny because my grandpa, I'm from the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints.
Absolutely,
right? And my grandpa taught religion at BYU forever.
Oh, wow.
But he would have it. He was like, he was, I think, a man after your own energy. Where there's something about telling the story, but also instilling enthusiasm in people.
Oh, without a doubt.
Right?
Absolutely.
But he had this science, and this is before digital technology. He just had this gut where he knew his time was up, and he would wrap up, and it would be like on the dot.
Listen, if I could borrow some of that gut, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm sure you got it. I'm sure you got it. So how did you decide to become, because your official title is you're a priest, or you're a bishop?
I'm a priest.
You're a priest, okay.
Yes.
So you're a priest in the Episcopalian Church.
That's correct.
And your congregation meets where here in Vegas?
So right now, I've served in Southern Nevada. I've served at my home church, which is Grace in the Desert Episcopal Church, which is over by the Summerlin Library.
Oh, that's great.
From there, I served at Epiphany Episcopal Church, which is now out off of Gillespie, which is down by the South Point.
Okay.
From there, I also did what's called being a supply priest. St. Martin's in Pahrump, they did not have a priest for a while, so I would go out there 2 Sundays a month.
Over the hump to Pahrump?
Every other Sunday. That's right. Absolutely. So I served them. I think that was about 2.5 years that I did that in corporate with things that I did in town.
Okay.
And then just around the time of COVID, because I remember we weren't meeting in person, my bishop assigned me to All Saints Episcopal Church, which is down on Washington Decatur, across from Gibson Middle School and the municipal golf course.
Awesome.
And I was there for, I guess it was 5 years. And I just left there in August. And I left there. It's just kind of a protocol, especially too because I'm what's called bivocational.
Okay. What does that mean? You do two jobs?
Correct. Meaning that I'm not a priest to feed myself, if that makes sense. So I'm a priest, like, once a priest, always a priest. So priest, but it is not my full-time vocation.
That's probably, people probably like that because you have real world experience.
You would think so, but there's different schools, you know what I mean? So I definitely have run into and have many colleagues who are bivocational themselves. But I also have colleagues that, that their life path was high school, seminary, ordination, served, and only their vocation has been that. And there can be some
pros and cons,
with some
and a little pride.
right, exactly. There could be some ego around that,
Yeah,
like, oh, you're locally trained, or you're bivocational, or whatever else it may be. All right, well, but again,
But I mean, like,
that happens. But what doesn't happen?
yeah,
Right?
well,
So things happen.
and
For
the
sure.
original apostles, right? We're talking about
Understood. Tent makers,
yeah, fishermen,
tax collectors, absolutely,
yeah,
without a doubt.
yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, so did you always? So actually, let me just give context because I think a lot of the people watching might not know much about the Episcopalian Church other than Martin Luther King.
Okay,
which
great.
is wonderful.
Well,
and then also, how many members? Like, what are some of your fundamental tenets?
all right, so basically we have what are called we have the 33 Articles of Faith, right?
Okay.
So basically, think of us as, and look, Robin Williams, I think probably coined it in pop culture the most in regards to, he termed it one time as being Catholic light, right? So essentially, I back during the time of Henry VIII, he wanted to get divorced. He wanted to stop sending money over to Rome, to the Roman Church, and wanted to have certain things his way. Pope said absolutely not. He said, all right, well, we're starting our own church. I'm the head of the church, and that became what is known as the Anglican Church, right? Or the Church of England. And then subsequently, his successor, his daughter, she came about, killed everybody that was associated with the church, went back to Catholicism. Subsequently, her successor came back, killed everybody again, and reestablished the monarchy as the head of the church, and Anglicanism as the Church of England. So essentially, we are a schism from the Roman Church, and I believe that was back in 1400s, late 1400s. And the Episcopal Church is the branch of the Anglican Communion, or the broader Anglican Church, which is worldwide, but the Episcopal Church is that church in the United States. The reason why
I didn't know
the
that.
reason why we were called what we are, as opposed to like the Anglican Church in Canada, or just being Anglican otherwise, is during the Revolutionary War, right? So given what the revolution, what the country was going through, there was this disconnect in regards to, well, the church is from England, the king is the head of the church, so essentially, the colonies, didn't want that kind of authority, even in regards to their faith life. So essentially, that got disconnected that way, and then ultimately, Seabury and other clergy members went back over to England, or to Ireland and Scotland, got ordained as bishops, came back, and through that line of succession, which is the apostolic succession that we continue to run our lives through, came back and established the Episcopal Church in the United States. And then over a period of time, we came back in and became, essentially, we're the Anglican Church in the United States.
Okay. Wow. Okay, that's
That's
remarkable.
You see a royal wedding, those kinds of things. That's all us. And our Archbishop and Primate, the head of the communion in total, is the See of Canterbury, and currently it's. She just took over for Justin Welby, who held that position for some time, and I can't think of her name, but she's the first woman in that role.
Okay, so you're clearly. You know what you're talking about.
Well, look, I try to.
That was impressive.
Absolutely. If my bishop was watching, she'd be like, "You forgot that."
Okay, well, I think you did a great job.
Well, thank you very much. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, for sure.
She's not watching. Yeah.
No, but I mean that's one of the things I admire about Catholicism, the Anglican Church, the reverence. I mean, we even have it in our church. There's this line of authority. You want to be able to trace things back.
Oh, without a doubt, for
Right?
sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's the law, the order of that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So reverence
and I mean, literally, I mean, clearly the church has archives, but you can trace the physical laying of hands from Jesus to the apostles to the bishops of let's just call it the Catholic and not the Roman Catholic, the Catholic Church, to the Anglican, to the Anglican bishops, all the way down through my bishop, who laid hands on me and made me a priest.
And I honored the sacred intent on that.
Understood. And I've been to clearly I've been to I don't know why I can't name it, but you know, the large temple in Salt Lake.
Oh, the Salt Lake Temple?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And I can recall, you know, the statue in which Joseph Smith
yeah.
is bowing, and
We
the
reverence the
representation
same.
of the
Yeah,
laying of hands in
yeah,
that statue for
yeah.
sure.
It's important. I mean, the authority is important. Yeah,
Understood.
and the connection. And
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, Christ obviously talks about that.
Absolutely. And again, as much as that is a part of my faith tradition, I certainly don't disqualify the gosh, I hesitate to call it a right, but the capacity for every person, whether they are in line with apostolic succession to be um, uh, to live a life of ministry, regardless of
Yeah,
formation, faith tradition, distinction of a church designation, those kind of
that's one of
things.
the.
I
I'm
think
sure. Yeah,
that's the responsibility of each and every one of us, male,
100%,
female,
100%.
regardless. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one of the many reasons why I just immediately liked you, because I think you know those truths. Like, we're all brothers and sisters.
Absolutely.
We're all connected. Yeah.
100%,
Yeah,
without a doubt. And any distinction that's made between that, those things are man-made. Those
Yeah.
things are not God-made. And those things are man-made for the same reasons why war is made, why
Yeah.
money is made, why, I mean, there's control, there's power
In division.
division.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, and there's glory and unity.
Absolutely,
there's heaven and
100%.
unity, yeah.
That's right.
Okay, so that's remarkable.
Yeah.
You clearly know your stuff. So why did you decide to become a priest? Like, what was the
Oh
path
gosh,
there?
you know what?
And then I want to know about some of your tattoos, because you got some really
Oh
cool
yes.
tattoos.
So I got to a point in my life in which you know they oftentimes refer to it as a calling, right? I did. I have had experiences, and again, you know, where our conversation goes, and we'll talk about things at another time in private or whatever else it may be.
No, bring it all out.
But I didn't get
Whatever you
so
want.
like you know, I'm one of these folks to where, like, you know, I'm a therapist, I work in mental health, this, that, and the other. I talk to people on a routine basis that believe themselves to be hearing auditory
Oh,
and
yeah.
seeing
It's a
visual
thing.
things
Yeah,
in
it's a
regards
thing.
to God, Jesus, you know, some, you know, a deity or the divine in some form. I can say that I have had my own experiences in which I believe from my experience that I was present with God in those moments. So I will sit there, I could sit down with a polygraph and literally be asked, have you met God? And I would say yes. And in my mind, I have.
Yeah. No, and I have,
like,
yeah.
I mean, you know, you see it in videos and you look, I don't know the guy's name, but the guy that takes off his jacket and he's whacking people and they're falling down and they're healed and
yeah.
they get out of wheelchairs and things like that. My experience wasn't like that, but I mean, it did overwhelm me to the core. I mean, after that experience, and it was at my favorite service of the year. It's during Holy Week, and it's essentially the altar's undressed, and there's just a simple life-size wooden cross that's laid across the altar. And you're invited individually to go visit the cross. And
A moment of reverence, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
And I went, and I just had one of the most remarkable spiritual experiences I had ever had.
Tell me about it.
And I probably cried. I probably cried for, like, I cried for and I was the first one to go up because I was the celebrant. So like I started crying at the cross. And then, you know, I then, you know, stood, you know, off to the side in the sanctuary and invited other people to come up and, you know, you could spend as much time as you like. And, you know, some people are long about it. Some people are brief about it, but I stand and, you know, everybody comes up and has their own experiences. And meanwhile, I mean, the hue of the room changed, my vision changed, and, you know, granted, there's lights in because, like, you know, again, I'm trying to think, like, you know, was this psychological? Was this, you know, was this emotional? You know, there's lots of things that can explain this experience, but
You're not crazy.
that understood, like,
Yeah, you're not
I mean,
crazy.
look, some people might argue otherwise,
No,
right?
no, but you're not.
But and sometimes I even argue to myself otherwise, but you know, everything from the physical experience to what I was experiencing physically, visually. I mean, the noise in the room, it was quiet otherwise, but I mean, it completely canceled out. You know, the hue that was in the upper part of my vision just kind of engulfed the entire field of my vision. And I mean, there was probably a period of, it felt like minutes, but I couldn't say with certainty, to where I was just completely consumed by not warmth as in hot, but warmth as in temperature became indifferent. It was, and it was just ambient, and things just absolutely stood still. And like any no, and I'm a pretty anxious cat, and like all the anxiety was gone. There was no real sense of consciousness other than I was present. I mean,
Wow.
I could have been floating. I mean, physical body change. I mean, everything in that moment. And gosh, it was so overwhelming that all I could do was cry like through the rest of the service. And I ended up holding it well enough because there's other things that I had to do, of course. But I mean, gosh, even just the waterworks. And I remember driving home and calling my wife, and I was trembling, and I was like, I think I met God. And now it's just
You still feel it.
absolutely,
You still feel it.
absolutely. And the thing of it is like, I'm not embarrassed by it. I will say it on a podcast because
Yeah.
that happened to me.
I
And
love it. I love
and
it.
I'll tell you what, having that experience, because faith is having a belief in something that is unseen. But when you have an experience like that, the capacity for what had previously been your faith to become concrete, the way you accept that, the way you internalize that, the way you share it with other people,
It changes you.
100%.
It changes you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're like that guy that I see on my Facebook reels that's making athletes cry. Well done.
Well, here's some tissue. Thank
I'll
you
be
for being
okay.
open.
Of course,
I mean,
absolutely.
vulnerability is a superpower.
Oh, look, I'm
right?
not here to lie.
Yeah, right.
what I mean?
I love that. Well, and I think that's what every human wants to be seen and heard.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what that experience is all of a sudden you feel totally seen. And your weakness is not shame,
Understood.
right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because shame and those kinds of things, it's, usually it's when you feel outcast from the whole,
Yeah,
right?
you're
To
alone,
where
you're separated.
that's right. To
Yeah.
where when any pocket of person or somebody, I don't like you, or we don't accept you, or those kinds of things. I mean, that is where shame comes from. But when I think that I've had enough challenging experiences in my life, and I'm not saying that from an Eeyore perspective, because everybody has, and they're all respective and relative to that person. But look, I lost my pride at least 7 years ago. My ego died with it.
Yeah.
And I would argue that too.
That's a
It's
gift.
probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me,
Yeah, that's a
because
gift.
I'm a completely different person
Yeah.
because of what I had explained previously, and
Wow.
also to having, and also too, there are faith foundations in that, because oftentimes I'll preach and I'll reference, and sometimes it will be on that subject matter. Sometimes it'll just happen and fleet. But there's an encouragement to where I share with people that you got to die to yourself, and essentially be born again, be born of spirit,
Yeah.
and
It's a
and
surrender.
for a lot of people, it just kind of goes over their head, or it sounds like something that you would hear in church. But when you allow yourself to let that soak in, and to try to live in that and try to accept that, it is an incredibly powerful instrument.
Yeah,
Without a doubt.
I agree. It's beautiful.
And one of the things that I had read in our email exchanges, and I can only assume is going to come up, and you can see how I go on and on, is that is the why, right?
Yeah. So what is your why? Like, yeah. So why did you become a priest?
Um,
And what does your why become as you've served?
This is the best way that I can articulate it, which I'm confident doesn't do it justice, is that if you've ever had the experience of going to like a fantastic restaurant
Mm.
and like you ordered something and it was
Mm.
just like, oh, like man, this
Yeah.
you gotta, and then you're like going around telling people
Yeah.
like they're not even asking about food or like it's not even the subject
Hey,
matter.
you should
And you're
try
like,
this.
there's this place, and you're like, you gotta try this because you had such an
Mm.
experience, like you got something out of it, and you just can't wait to share it, like you want them to experience it too.
Mm.
That's my why. And that's my why as a mental health provider. That's my why as a father. That is my why as a priest.
I love it. Yeah, you want to share the good news.
I not only do I want to share the good news, but uh,
We probably feel compelled.
it's almost like, hey, like and again, it's not that my life is perfect and and that I don't have my challenges and I don't have my hardships and that I don't bonk myself over the head and create my own conflicts, or that life doesn't come along and pull the rug out from underneath me. I mean, I'm normal and human like everybody else, but there are these instruments, there are these perspectives, there are these tools that you can have that literally allow you to see everything from a different perspective. And the way that all we are is, we're kind of sponges, pinging
Mm.
off, the stimuli, whether it be internal, external, whatever else it might be. But, if you take it out of, often, from what our parents teach us or what we learn in school or what the influences that we have, and you say, well, hey, look, there's a lot of flaws in that. But let me incorporate these other things, and as I go out and sponge into the world, these are the rubrics in which I basically break it down, and how I understand it,
Sure.
and what I do with it. Those are the same kinds of things, whether it be, again, I'm in therapy, I'm secular, and in my church life, I'm not. But regardless of what milieu or formative formation I'm coming from, when I'm trying to help somebody, I'm still trying to help somebody and still get to that same place.
It's all the
Does that
same
make
why.
sense? And again, I mean, and look, what does that? I know what it's like to suffer, and I don't want my brother or sister to suffer. And if I can help alleviate some of that with them and show them a different way, or bear some of that burden, or just oftentimes it's simply just listening, because I mean, most of my patients already know what they have to do, know what the issue is. But the ability to be able to have a conversation with somebody about it, to receive encouragement from it, to not feel shamed by it,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
That's Christian.
100%.
Yeah, that's
right.
Christ's ministry. I call it the doctrine of Christ. He's out there loving people, right?
Absolutely.
So you hit on a couple things. One is just listening. There's a quote by Mother Teresa. She was interviewed once, and she was asked what she does because she would pray for hours.
I know. Understood. Yeah.
And one time she gave an interview where she was asked, well, what are you doing while you're praying? And she's like, I'm listening. And the reporter said, well, what is God telling you? And she said, he's listening too, which I thought was pretty.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely.
And you seem like you do that well. Like even though you can talk, you have the gift for gab. I'm sure you come across very compassionate. You're there to spread love. You see people.
100%.
You look at people.
I try to.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can tell
it's
you do.
intentional for sure.
Yeah, it's a muscle. So when you're counseling people, and I think we talked about this briefly when we met. Do you think, I know the counseling profession, my wife's a counselor, the counseling profession puts a strong emphasis on professionalism, divorcing religion from the counseling exercise.
Yeah, for some. I mean, certainly the medical model is the prevailing model,
Right,
without a
right.
doubt. Yeah.
But do you think that counseling without religion is effective? I think we talked about Lisa Miller's book, The Awakened Brain, a little bit.
I think it certainly can be, but again, and I have to acknowledge that I have a bias.
Sure.
that there certainly is.
Not a biased experience.
That's right. So
Yeah.
so I have an experience that says that, hey, you know what, the model in which the scope of my professional relationship with you says that I can't go there, right? I can have X conversations with you if you're having X conversation with me. Does
Yeah,
that make sense? But I can't go here.
I
and
can bring a
can't
faith if you
slide-
bring a
I
faith.
can't
Yeah.
proselytize. Like
Yeah.
I can't interject it myself. If you bring it up, I can talk to you about it through your own lens, right? But I can't add anything to it. Does that make sense?
Sure.
And yes, look, I've gotten more than 46,000 hours face-to-face clinical hours.
That's a lot.
So and an overwhelming majority of those have had, you know, they are not faith-based. And yes, I've effectively helped people without that. However, at least from my perspective, that you know, it would be great if one arm wasn't tied behind the back. You know what I mean? To, like, by the way, like we've done wonderful things together, and you have done fantastic things. Look at where you were when we met.
Yeah.
Look at what you've been able to achieve. But again, like, I can't tell them about the restaurant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah, you can't.
that's hard. You
Gotta
know
tell
what
them
I
about the
mean?
restaurant.
But
You wanna
again,
treat the whole,
I
yeah.
do get to get it in as well, because I do have the opportunity to do quite a bit of pastoral counseling as well.
I'm sure, which is, in my experience, I found that's pretty transformative.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because you're treating the whole human. You're treating, because we're in many respects we're at least dual beings, where we have a body and we have a spirit.
Absolutely.
We have a heart and a mind, right? All
Absolutely.
these dualities. So that's fascinating, because at least Miller suggests, and that's a lot of experience. 46,000 hours is incredible. My wife's trying to get her. She just graduated and she's doing her residency, and she's like, I have to get to 1,500 hours. And she's like, last night she was like, I'm only at 150.
Now it feels like a lot when you're going week by week. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But when you've been doing it for 20 years,
a long time.
it adds up.
It does
you know
add
what I
up.
mean?
That's a
Yeah,
long time.
it does.
I
You'll get
wonder
there.
if I've counseled clients, not just a lawyer. That's a lot. So when you're in that mode, one of the things that Lisa Miller suggests is, she says, she contends in her book, The Awakened Brain. She's Jewish, faith mindset, and she tries to bridge this gap. She tries to say we should be able to reconcile faith with psychiatry. She's a psychiatrist.
Understood.
She's done all these MRIs, and she said, I actually believe that if you do counseling without faith, it actually causes harm, like iatrogenic harm, because you are tying one hand behind your back. And so I'm curious how you bridge that gap as a traditional counselor, not out of criticism, but do you think the industry should change? You know, that's kind of my question.
I would love to see the industry change. However, as much as I'm a faithful person, I have zero faith that it's going to change in that direction.
Yeah.
And look, the thing of it is that, as much as, look, I'm a man of faith, I also am a man of science. I mean, most of the things that I do in my, one of my professions is evidence-based, is
And there's power in both, right?
Absolutely.
And we can
kinds of things.
reconcile. I think we can reconcile the dichotomy a little bit.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain cautions, though. There's red flags, because, I mean, the amount of people that I have worked with over time, that at least one of the traumas of their life is religious trauma.
Sure.
And how that's been incorporated now. And that doesn't mean that I'm not talking about specifically, sexual assault or sexual abuse within the church, but I'm talking about, yes, church mechanisms that, that disenfranchise, that hurt people, or, parents who, were, adherents to a certain faith tradition, and how their faith informed them, and the consequences that had on their lives, their families, their upbringing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
that's one of the, I think that's the fundamental lie that.
And I can say that is one of, because when you're a therapist, there's transference, there's countertransference, and like, you're still the person, although, hey, you're meeting with Nicolas Neubauer, you're not meeting with the real Nicolas Neubauer, you're meeting with the Nicolas Neubauer LCSW that is your therapist, right? So, I'm just wearing a certain hat.
Yeah.
One of the...
But you can't divorce yourself from it.
Understood. So like, you're still inside your body, although you're being professional, right?
Sure.
There's certain, so it's like there is a part of you
have
that's
your
like
energy.
that. But I mean, the amount of people that know a God, that understand a Jesus that is not the God that I worship, is not the
Mm.
Jesus that I've ever met, and the harm that that has caused them, that's really hard to sit through.
Oh, for sure. Well, and it gives me awareness, heightened awareness about the fact that just as there's a God, there's clearly a devil who's trying to,
There's definitely something else.
yeah, for sure. There's darkness. There's
Absolutely.
there are forces that charade as God, or wolves in sheep's clothing, so to speak. And there's that one. I think there's one lie that leads to all misery, all liability, all sorrow, really, in the world, and it's that you can treat someone like an object, a means to an end, a
Understood.
dollar sign, something to be controlled or manipulated.
Absolutely.
That violates the divinity inside of us. But when we treat other people like humans, when we honor them as humans,
Absolutely.
that creates light.
Without a doubt. And look,
Yeah.
and I mean, that is.
That's the war.
That's the war, right?
Yeah.
That's the conflict, because the nature of being a human being, to live in the physical world, to survive in the physical world, to go out and have the abilities which within the realm that we occupy, that we know, that we perceive. You do have to have traits, characteristics, organic mechanisms, biology to be able to go out there and do that.
Sure.
But the thing of it is that those are powerful mechanisms within themselves,
That can be manipulated.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what you see is that it's that human animal component that is essentially mismanaged to where and the thing of it is like, Jesus teaches about those things. Not only did he live in his life demonstrative in ways that are like, hey, this is what I should do in that situation. Or what did Jesus do there? Or follow me. Like,
led
I'm
by
trying
example.
to, that's right. And like, these are the teachings. This is how I lived. So, that's the solution. But it is hard to not be overcome by jealousy, by greed, by hurt, by envy, by wanting power, recognition, all of these kinds of things. And that's the inflection point to where oftentimes it's the biology, it's the chemistry, it's those things that win over, and you become the cognitive distortions that says, well, maybe my faith isn't real, or maybe I can get away with this, or there's no harm in that. We start making these justifications, and you get more and more benign and desensitized to it, and you push those things out because it's like, well, I want to be able to have my cake and eat it too, you know what I mean? But I mean, the reality of it is that becomes incredibly consequential in your life.
It does, and it's almost as if God's inviting us to balance. We keep talking about dichotomies, but there's truth and love. You have to have both, right? You can't just. I like to think that if you just love people and don't have truth, that's actually pretty crippling.
Without a doubt,
right?
For sure.
Enabling.
Yeah,
right?
because like, hey, and that's right. Like, that's exactly what that is. Because a part of my loving you is to tell you the truth.
Bingo.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But straight truth without love scars. So like, love without truth cripples, and
absolutely. But also too, there is this thing that is trending, and it's been culturally relevant for at least a couple of years, and it drives me nuts. And look, I'm not making blanket judgments towards anybody, but
you're warning.
There's mantras, there's things, and the people that are living into their truth, or it's just my truth, and it's just like, listen,
there's no such thing as my truth. It's just the truth.
Understood. Like, look, I want, great, share what you have, but oftentimes people use it as justification to say, well, that's my truth. Well, do you know how much your truth just hurt me? that both of them can exist. Maybe it's a matter of how you share it. Or maybe before you put your truth onto me, potentially consider the fact that great that that's your truth, but it's not mine.
No, dude.
You know what I mean? Nor does that make it a universal.
No,
because it's your truth doesn't mean it's the law.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
So true. Like, the words matter, and
absolutely,
when people say my truth, that rubs me wrong too. But Socrates is the one that kind of suggested this, where he's like, well, if we want to talk about objective truth versus subjective truth, we can call the truth, the objective truth, the truth. You can call your subjective perception my truth. The problem with that is that in Greek that's an easier distinguishment. It's easier to distinguish the two.
Absolutely.
Here we're a little slippery because English is different.
Absolutely.
And it leads to that subjective abuse, like where you try and put something.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's fascinating too, because one of the things that we believe in our faith, we have this really cool set of scriptures where called the Doctrine and Covenants, where we believe Joseph Smith received this revelation where Christ says to him, "The word of the Lord is truth." So the word is truth, truth is light, and light is spirit.
Understood.
And then he goes on another verse to say, and spirit is actually refined matter. It's just we can't discern it, which is cool. Emerson actually said that. He said, spirit is just really thin matter. He's quoted as saying that, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely.
So if you followed this like arithmetic, at least in my brain, this is my perception, God's word is truth. That's why you feel it. Like when you hear something true, it like electrifies you, right?
Absolutely, without a doubt.
You have that emotional reaction. The word is truth. Truth is light. Light is spirit. Spirit is matter. That means that real truth is matter, and it has that effect. But also lies are the antimatter.
That's right.
It like decomposes us, our existence, our
without
being.
a doubt.
Yeah, right.
So 100%.
So what have you had experiences with that?
Oh,
or
gosh.
tell me why you agree with that.
Well,
readily.
I mean,
love that.
to some degree, I mean, my faith tradition, we're Trinitarian. So, a little bit of what you said, seems, Father, Son, Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
All of that encompasses all things. Jesus is the Word. The Word is the truth. It's all light. All of those things are, although we recognize, three separate substances, it is all one being for us. It's
Matter.
just, that's right. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So Father, Son, Holy Spirit, that's not a relationship. It's just more so of how we are connected to God and how we've experienced God.
makes sense.
God in person, Jesus Christ, and God the creator of all things, and God present, Holy Spirit, if that
It
makes
is,
sense. But I mean, look, as far as truth these days, I mean,
Dude, it's hard right now, isn't it?
Of course.
With all the AI stuff and all the fake stuff. And
I mean, not only that, but just the things that are coming out of people's mouths, you know what I mean?
know,
it's just like I can see that is not true. That is objectively not true.
Yeah.
But
you're clinging to it.
But
and you're
not only
wielding
that,
it.
but there's droves of people that are behind you with it, and it's just
Yeah.
you start to think, like, am I crazy? Because that is not accurate. It's measurable that's not accurate, but there's everybody with it.
We go through cycles too, and did we talk about the fourth turning at all when we met? I don't think so.
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so I probably bring it up all the time just because this book blew my mind, but it talks about, it was written in the 80s, a couple of economists, and it talks about, hopefully we can show it on the screen when we do this, the book, The Fourth Turning. These guys are economists, they're Christian, and they have a little bit of a faith mindset, and I wouldn't call it bias, I would just call it experience, right? You have these beautiful experiences where you see life and it enhances your perception of how to live and be happy. So anyway, they're writing this book, and they basically study history all the way back to pre-Roman, early Sanskrit times.
Okay.
And they say, hey, there's a pattern. We go through seasonal cycles, societal seasonal cycles, every 80 to 120 years.
Okay,
we go through spring,
I'm
summer,
familiar
fall,
with
winter.
the concept,
Okay,
yeah.
And in the 80s, they're like, hey, in 2020, we're going to be in the middle of a war.
Wow. Okay.
War, technocracy, where the technology rises up as our threatens government. Nobody trusts government. You got all this gender confusion, and you got all these people who are mad, and you have disease and pestilence and plagues and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, this happens every 100-ish.
Well,
years.
and look, God bless them for whatever pattern they were able to discern. But I tend to think, in regards to those kinds of things, that tell me a day in recorded human record that all of those things weren't true.
Well, and I think
know
that
what I mean?
sometimes too, because you see those stresses, yeah. But they suggest societally we go through a whole
Kind of like the real estate market, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
for sure, which is not exciting right
Understood.
now. Yeah, but it's interesting because one of the beautiful things they suggest is that in 2020, the winter, we all felt that, and then they say, but the spring's coming, and we have an opportunity to bring light and to push against the darkness, and it's actually the darkness that incentivizes and encourages and you know, it flames our fire
Understood, without a doubt.
to go protect things.
Absolutely.
And it's that reaction to the darkness. So like we see, or even right now, like all these people who are saying, hey, yeah, communism is great, socialism is great. I'm like, have you lived in an Eastern European country?
Understood.
Because
Yeah,
I have.
you have.
Yeah, I did for 2 years in Romania and Moldova. I just saw
Wow.
how it ripped the soul out of people.
Understood.
It just destroys creativity. The most common saying in Romania when I was there was, "Ce să fac," which means what can you do?
Understood.
Because any sense of authority,
Yeah.
any sense of, hey, I'm an actor, an agent, it was all robbed by communism. It just crushed the spirit of the country.
Understood.
As opposed, so they're all
Yeah,
objects.
I have a longtime friend that she grew up in the Czech Republic.
So you know what I'm talking
under
about.
communism.
Yeah.
She described herself, being, a preteen and slightly overweight. She basically, one of the consequences of being a preteen, being overweight in where she lived is that, she basically would get carted off to fat camp for being overweight, and they basically would have tanks drive behind them, and a bunch of children who were determined to have a BMI of X basically just had to run.
What?
Yes, that was
I've never even heard that.
That was the plan.
What?
To address that. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about being controlled or
Of
manipulated.
course.
Yeah.
How scary is that?
And that doesn't
what I
change
mean?
the
And
human.
That's your government, which is to
Yeah.
be your everything. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
your relationship to what it is that.
Yeah, the government becomes God.
Of course,
right?
100%.
Which is what Karl Marx is all about. He's like, my goal is to get rid of the family and get rid of God.
Understood.
And so you look at that and go, but I think it's all part of the cycle. And it actually makes us who have faith go, no, I need to protect faith.
No.
And I need to partner with people. Even if you and I don't agree on certain doctrines, we both agree Christ is the Savior. We both agree that there's a heaven. We both agree that we're meant to love each other and learn how to be more like Him.
That's right.
And be kind to each other. And we feel that. Like when you get together.
Absolutely.
When I met you, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this guy's a disciple.
Of course. Yeah. And look, you brought it up today, but I'm not like, hey, there's that Mormon guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not thinking that at all. I'm thinking,
No,
like,
and I
dude,
don't-
I met
yeah.
the coolest guy,
I
man.
know, right?
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And the fact too that, like, I mean, in a lot of parts of the world that I live in, like, I'm the guy that's in the group that's like, that's talking about Jesus casually, like he's my homie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I mentioned Jesus free, and like I can
he
literally
is. He is
see,
your homie.
but I can literally see people, at tables, like,
Cringe up.
my wife would be like, you know what I mean? I'm like, what? I'm just talking about Jesus,
Yeah,
man. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
You're talking about the
But
restaurant.
like everybody gets like uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like I said, some kind of slur. You know what I mean? It's just like, no,
Well,
man.
and so
I'm just talking about Jesus.
It's crazy because you say that. So culturally, America has gone through this cycle as well since the 60s, which was our last spring, according to these guys, where there was this idea that there should be this, not just a division between church and state, which I think is basically what the Episcopalian Church was trying to protect against. Right?
Understood.
And I think that's fair. No church should be the government,
Correct.
right? We should be able to have freedom of consciousness and go pursue God as our conscience dictates. But that doesn't mean that we bury God. That doesn't mean
100%.
that we're ashamed of talking about it.
Of course.
And the Supreme Court's empowered a lot of case law recently has empowered faith, and it's basically said, no, if you're a government worker, you can have a crucifix on your desk. It's okay. You can pray in school.
Yeah, like you're, if you don't have to, but you can.
It's
you know
your
what I mean? You
choice.
can't go grab somebody else and say, hey,
make 'em
you've
do it.
got to do this, but yeah, you shouldn't be admonished or separated because of it.
And honor your faith.
That's
honor
right.
your faith. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I feel like we're already pushing back a little, which is good.
Yeah, but I mean, look, when you think about, it's the soft power that ends up winning, if that makes sense. So like when you look at, any empire, right, started off with something that, that got the attention of the people, that allowed it to grow into whatever it became. But then it hardens, and then the soft power goes away, and it becomes about hard power, and it becomes about ruling and rules and control and wealth and all of these kinds of things. Well, that can only get you so far.
Yeah.
And it's the soft power that ultimately, like you're saying, that the dark pushes so hard that ultimately it is the love, it is the vulnerability that strengthens,
Yeah.
that then combats that
Yeah.
and says no, and then it aims to balance the equation. And you know what? And you do see that cycle repeat itself over and
Yeah,
over.
I love
And it
that.
can be on a macro level, it can be on a micro level, it could be
Yeah.
you know in various forms.
That's
for
the
sure.
war.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I also feel like, so I think I shared with you that a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with a couple brain tumors, and my experience was God's real, angels are real. I even had an experience where I'm sitting in the hospital ER, holding my wife's hand. After neurosurgery, I'm in the neuro ICU, and it's hell. You can't get out of bed for 4 days. Yeah, you can't breathe out of your nose. You can't move. You just got to sit there and kind of suffer through it while your brain heals, because they go up and pull some skull out. And I felt this woman, and I wasn't on drugs, so I'm not crazy.
It's okay.
I feel this woman, feel her, don't see her, walk by the foot of my bed, reach down and touch me on the forehead, and immediately my whole body is filled with light. And I recognized her energy. I'd felt her before, and I'm sure she was a relative from before. She touches me on the forehead, my body fills with light, and I look at my wife and I say, I signed up for this. I wanted to go through this. It's that celestial weightlifting.
Wow.
Right? It's like the strength that comes from the struggle
Of course.
that makes us more like the Savior.
Absolutely. That's right. And the thing of it is that when you're in the struggle, it's hard not to perceive it as being bad.
Yeah,
right?
or personal or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's, again, that's that toolkit. That's that
Yeah.
perception of that, hey, this is really hard, right? But what an opportunity.
Yeah. And
Does
it was
that make
defining.
sense? Like this,
Changes you.
like I can embrace the suck of this. Like I can take accountability and look at this and say like,
That sucks.
this sucks. Like this doesn't feel good. I don't want this, whatever else it may be.
Yeah.
But what I can make from this, how much better can I be because of this?
Yeah,
like there's so much to gain from that.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And there's been times in my life in which, I've, again, life has, crashed into me and again, times of my own doing, to where, I've looked around and I thought, well, where is God in all of this? And, I couldn't find God, you know what I mean? But some time passes, you know what I mean? And then to be able to have the experience of like anything, you Monday night quarterback, you armchair quarterback, and you look behind, you think, oh my gosh,
He was there.
he was there the whole time, you know what I mean? And like that, again, like, I already lost my tissue, but I mean, that's
That's it. That's the love.
that's it.
Yeah. But there's also that truth of that raw truth where he's like, I'm going to let you go through this because I love you.
Understood.
But I'm going to carry it with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to make those experiences become muscle instead
Yeah,
of scar.
And I mean, not that I don't have the answer for it, because I can only imagine the type of hat I could wear if I did. But like,
that requires
as far as like,
more.
why does suffering exist? You know what I mean? But if suffering didn't exist, what would our experience in this life be?
Yeah.
Does that mean like pizza night is great when it's, the first Friday of every month, you know what I mean? But if you're like, hey, that was so great, let's have pizza tomorrow. Let's do it again. After a while, it's not pizza night. It's like, ugh.
Something else.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And again, like that doesn't make suffering okay. You know what I mean? But like, and again, there's as much as I need light, need water to exist in this world, I can also drown in it and lose my life in it.
Oh, it's so well said. That's so well said. We got to clip that.
And I don't don't have to like that truth. Yeah. I'm not responsible for it. I didn't make that truth, but
no, but it's the opposition that makes room for existence.
That's right.
Yeah, you need the contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so have you ever heard of a guy named Emanuel Swedenborg?
Yeah, I do have to say that I'm terrible with names.
That's okay. So he was, and most people don't even know who he is, but he influenced Thoreau, Emerson.
Oh, I love Thoreau, love Emerson.
Right? He
Absolutely.
influenced Immanuel Kant. He was a contemporary with Immanuel Kant. They were friends.
Okay.
But this guy's name was Emanuel Swedenborg. Lived in Sweden. He was the minister of mining for the Queen of Sweden back in the day, 1700s-ish. Some people claim he was the father of the Renaissance at that time.
Okay.
because we go through cycles, and the
That's
spring
right.
is the Renaissance, right?
Absolutely.
He has this experience. He's 40-ish years old. He's fascinating. And because you can get all his books online. He's written like 40 books. 40 years old, sitting in his library, single. I don't know how hard his life was, but he's kind of living off the hog,
Understood.
right? Doesn't have any kids, not married. And Christ shows up. What's interesting is before Christ shows up, the devil shows up and threatens him. And in our Joseph Smith perception, we're like, oh, that's like with Joseph Smith. Like the opposition comes before the good, right? Very similar experience. But so the devil shows up and he feels like he's going to die. And then Christ shows up and liberates him. And then Christ says, hey, you have some stuff you're supposed to do that you haven't done yet here on earth. And then he takes him on a tour of heaven and hell. Now, C.S. Lewis.
That's right. It's a very similar story.
Yeah. And C.S. Lewis has written a lot of really cool stuff. And a lot of his stuff is actually basically a translation or a modern explanation at that time of stuff that Swedenborg wrote.
Well, listen, he borrowed it. Huh?
Well, yeah, and he even talks about that. C.S. Lewis is like, I like to sprinkle religion in my stuff all the time, even Narnia and all that kind of stuff. So Immanuel Kant goes on this tour of heaven and hell. He sees hell. He sees that it smells bad. It like offends all the senses, but people there enjoy that.
No,
and it's dark and dank and evil and all this kind of stuff. But people in heaven, it's the opposite. It's sweet and it's the restaurant like you talk about. It's this place you want to go. What's fascinating is he talks about how when he gets to heaven, it's filled with little children because of all the children that have suffered and died as children, but how happy all of them are. And it's beautiful because you just think of little kids.
The holy innocence.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think that there's something about this idea that, like you're saying, that the contrast is necessary for enjoyment. It's necessary for existence. And the suffering is so temporary.
I get that.
Compared to...
And look,
it still sucks.
It's not to minimize the suffering, right?
No.
But also...
But the reward is so much bigger.
And look, if that's not the hardest part, right? Especially, being a human being. And look, reasonable argument, being an American in this time to where, the things are convenient. We want everything now. We want everything fast. Amazon, I can order, if I want to pink tutu in my size, like it'll be on my door by the time I get home from
tomorrow.
The office, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I want it. Those and the thing of it is that I'm not saying time isn't real. It's relative to our experience, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, that there's so much to come.
So much good to come.
There's so much to come,
and we can't even comprehend all.
Absolutely. Yeah. And who knows?
Well, like the Bible says, it hasn't even entered into the heart of man how awesome it's going to be.
Understood.
Right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why too, and again, it comes back to perspective. You know what I mean? Like I'm not. I don't want to die, right? You know what I mean? But I accept the fact that I'm going to, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in some faith traditions, and look, you're going to miss the person that goes, and that's 100% true. But also too, there's that perspective. A lot of times there can be shame around death, in certain cultures and certain faith traditions, to where other cultures and faith traditions, it's like, hey, look, we missed them, but God bless them. We're happy for them. You know what I mean?
Let's throw a party.
That's right. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And you could tell, I've done funeral ministries for, my father's a mortician and been at Palm since 1974 here in town.
No way.
So just as a clergy person, like, hey, can you, do you mind this, that, and the other? So, by virtue of that, working in the funeral home industry myself for some time, like, just seeing the different faith traditions and how they process death and dying, you know what I mean? It's just those things.
Well,
there's just
themes,
so much
you probably see a lot of themes.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah.
It's a common experience for us to go, to struggle with.
And look, I've been to LDS funerals.
Sure.
And oftentimes, the folks there, yes, they're mourning and they're grieving, but also at the same time, it's a homecoming. They're happy for the person, if that makes sense.
For sure.
And like, if you're not from that faith tradition and you're thinking like, man, everybody's handling this pretty well. You know what I mean? Like, but that's beautiful.
It is beautiful. You know what I mean? It's the sweet to the sour, right?
Absolutely.
So in Hebrew, there's a word for this that I loved. I learned after when we went to Jerusalem, I learned this word. We went a couple of years before all this terrible stuff has been happening. And the word is nechom. which is a cool tradition. Obviously, Hebrew affects all of us because of this,
100%.
the Savior and all, his life in Jerusalem. But Nahom means this idea of sorrow and joy at the same time. And that's being human.
That's right.
Yeah.
1000%.
Right?
Absolutely.
the paradox.
It's all there. And that's the whole thing. Like, you can, I could tell you a story about, my daughter being born, right? And like how that experience was and how remarkable that was. And I can also tell you, experience like, and this is, a little off, but, I saw a stray dog get hit by a car, you know what I mean? And the thing is like, those things, they coexist inside me all the time, all of my joys, all of my pains, all of my suffering, all of my, all of the positives, like, and, we're carrying those things with us 100% of the time. And those things are the things that we're made up of. And there's no avoiding them, you know what I mean? And, I do believe that some people have this perspective that we're supposed to walk around and, hey, like be happy all the time, you know what I mean? And like, maybe I'm just supposed to be like this. Maybe that's okay.
Yeah, and there's a book of Lamentations for a reason, right?
Absolutely.
Like to lament, to take your burden to God.
Of course.
Say, this is painful for me.
Yeah.
So one of the techniques, I'm curious if you have other techniques like this. One of the techniques I've kind of stumbled on through promptings, when let's say my wife comes to me and she has heavy stuff or criticism, whatever, or I'm dealing with someone I deal with contention all the time as well.
I understood. I can only imagine.
There's this mental exercise I go through where I try and imagine myself holding Jesus's hand while I go through that pain to deal with whatever it is. And it just brings the peace, because the reaction is the risk.
Absolutely. No, without a doubt, 100%.
So do you have other techniques like that or other things that you think have helped people deal with that kind of stuff? Because that's the stress. That's the challenge of life, right? Is dealing with those experiences.
It certainly is. Although I do have exercises that would be that would fall in the line of imagery, if that makes sense, right?
Go ahead,
I mean, oftentimes, I'm very cognizant of what Jesus wants for me, if that makes sense. So, and as a therapist, it kind of works the same way, right? Like, and I have other ways around it, but essentially, I communicate to people, well, that person can't make you feel that way. You know what I mean? And like, that person didn't make you angry. Like, you became angry. Like, you chose to feel that way about it.
We hate hearing that.
I understand. It makes, I have my ways around it so the patient doesn't come and punch me in the face, right? But, as it relates to that, like, I try to be cognizant of that. That, like, hey, like, I can...
You're still the actor.
I can absorb this. And again, this is my in-life stuff that Jesus doesn't want that for me. Like, yes, I could be upset by this,
I love that.
but how harmful of that, that's going to be harmful to me. And then what am I going to do with that? Does that make sense? Like, if I allow that to hurt me, if I allow that to upset me, then how am I gonna behave towards that same person, or to my children when I get home, or whatever else it might be? Like, I have to be able to reconcile those things with myself so I can be the person that I know that God wants me to be.
And emulate, like,
because I've got every reason to be angry. I've got every reason to be disenfranchised. I've got every reason to go out and
contend,
be that. But so if somebody's yelling at me, yes, there's that human impulse to want to yell back and to get angry. But for what?
And it just
what's that going to do? You know what I mean? I'm ultimately going to have to come back and apologize for it. You know what I mean? Or it's like lying about the problem. You're just making it worse. You know what I mean?
But it's so hard not to sometimes.
No, of course, without a doubt.
I agree with you.
But again, but the thing of it is that like a golf swing, right? Like, if you're not a golfer, which I'm not, but I know a little bit, to where, like, somebody hands you a club and they're like, hey, take a swing at the ball. You tend to want to hold it like a baseball bat, and you're like, all right, let me take a crack at this. And they're like, no. You gotta wrap your fingers around it like this, and you gotta hold your thumbs like this, and you gotta and you're like, what? Like this? Are you like you're being pranked, right? Like, are you sure? But the thing of it is, practice, repetition. At a certain point, somebody hands you a club, you walk up to the tee, you put your hands like that. It's comfortable. You get in that awkward stance and you swing through the ball. You're not even thinking about it anymore. So, those kinds of life skills, whether they're instruments of faith or they're psychoeducational concepts, evidence-based therapeutic concepts, practice, repetition, intentionality, discipline, those things create improvement. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And
yeah.
and the same thing goes with how much you live into your faith.
Yeah, celestial weightlifting.
Absolutely, without a
Work
doubt.
those muscles.
That's right.
I love it. Well, and it also helps you become like the savior. You know, when Moses meets God at the burning bush, he's like, "Who should I say is telling me to go talk to Pharaoh?" God's like, "I am.
Mhm.
I am that I am." He's not changed by his experience. He changes the experience.
That's right.
And it's powerful.
That's right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And that is as true as it's ever been.
Yeah.
And I know that God has changed my experience
Amen.
over and over again.
Amen to that. Me too, man. Me too.
And I'm grateful
Okay, so
for that.
me too. So let's hit some of your. Well, I want to know about some of your tattoos. Let's hit some mantras, and then we have a gift for you.
Oh well, gosh, you didn't have to.
No, but so I love this. With
So
the,
this
the
is
lamb.
this is an Angus Day.
Uh-huh.
This represents Jesus,
Yeah.
the sacrifice, right?
Sacrificial lamb.
Lamb. That's right. So this dove
Holy
is the
Ghost.
Holy Spirit.
Yeah, yeah.
Is Cairo. It's incorporated in the word hope, in which the O is a heart. And keep in mind, like this is not fantastic art.
Oh, so this is hope. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
so
I see
this
it
is
now. I see
hope.
it,
So
yeah.
H, there's a heart representing
Hope and
the O.
love.
There's a Cairo, and this E is the same symbol for the Church of England.
Okay. Okay.
And this is love on this side. I do have, well, look, I guess it depends, but taking my jacket off.
Talk about celestial weightlifting.
Too much last night.
No, whatever, dude. You're rich.
That's right. No, gosh, I wish I were. But so here, love God, love others. Peace be with you.
Oh wow.
And
And that's the English.
again, we have into the Cairo.
Yeah.
This is a symbol for the Trinity. Cross. God is love.
Wow. Yeah. And then the symbol of
Holy Spirit.
Christianity. Yeah.
And
Yeah. The fishes.
that's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love
Tradition of the fishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back in the day, they used to be able to tell people, the Christian friendly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
And I've got all kinds of, I think I have a cross somewhere on my neck.
Yeah.
I've got other stuff.
But you're manifesting your faith.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
without doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
It,
Well, especially, and it's here in Vegas. I know you can't, and whenever I see somebody with tattoos here, because there's so many people with tattoos
oh
in Vegas,
gosh, absolutely.
I'm like, what's your favorite tat? And they always have like 4.
Well, I've also got each one of my children's names on my kid. I've got all
How many kids do you have?
4.
4 kids. Yeah, you still have your hair though.
Yes. Well, listen, not as much as I used to. Not as much as I had 3 years ago. And it certainly wasn't this color.
How old's your oldest?
22-year-old boy, Jackson Jett.
Very cool.
He is going to graduate in August from the Fashion Institute of Technology.
Oh, wow.
He lives out in Manhattan. He goes to school there.
I don't know where he got the fashion from, because
Now, look, me neither. But again, if you were to look at
whatever you look incredible.
the clothing that he designs, the clothing he sells, not anything that I would wear. But it's wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
But look, I do like the fact that and that's the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, I am self-aware enough to know that when I actually walk into a room or walk down the street, I mean, I get that people look at me and like people make judgments, and some seem to like it, most who don't.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, I died all of that years ago. You know what I mean? So I love the fact that I can just like, hey, I like that, like that.
People
Like I can be that, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like even like my children, they've kind of grown out of it, but there's certain things like, hey, Dad, you're coming to my volleyball game. What are you gonna wear? Because like they're still and look, rightfully.
Are you gonna look like a priest?
Yeah, it's even worse if I'm wearing my collar as opposed to wearing some puffy pirate shirt or something like that. You know what I mean? So, but again, those kinds of things. Well, getting back to my children. So Jackson's 22. He graduates in August from Fashion Institute of Technology. My daughter, who's going to be 16, which is fantastic because I feel like her Uber driver. She's going to be 16 in April. Her name's Ava Danger. She's volleyball.
Ava Danger.
And just Danger's her middle name. She's just deeply interested in the volleyball. So volleyball's absolutely wonderful.
Okay, I just can't pass on the irony that a priest named his daughter.
Absolutely.
Her middle name is Danger.
It had to be. It had to be.
That's cool.
And then my youngest son, he just turned 13. His name is Nevada Blue. And then my youngest.
His name is Nevada Blue?
First name Nevada, middle name Blue.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay.
He's got the most beautiful piercing blue eyes.
Oh, dude, well, that's true to him.
No, tell him.
Yeah, yeah. I bet he loves it.
And he does. And then, yes, he just got a perm, so he's really moving his program. So, and then my youngest daughter, she just turned 10. She's in the 4th grade. Her name's Olivia Rose. And to save the most energetic one that requires the most attention to be the youngest and the last. Where my wife and I were like, "Hey, we've got 3. What's one more?" That was like, bam! I was like, "That's
That's more.
So he's just like 3 kids in one.
Yeah.
But she's just so full of life, and this is so beautiful.
I love that. I love
She's
that.
so
My youngest, who's 9, is like that. Her name's Grace, and oh, we need a lot of grace for Grace. But she's like, it's the same thing. It's just like, oh,
absolutely.
personality. Here we go.
My daughter, her room, she's been sticky since the day we met. Like, if I'm like, if I buy her like a white piece of clothing, I know that I'm gonna have to throw it away in like 2 days. Like, there's certain things that you still have to like hide or put up, like crazy glue. Like, don't let crazy glue in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's
Silly Putty's another one.
she's quite something.
Oh yeah. No, that's incredible. You guys deserve her. That's beautiful. Okay, so tattoos, kids, great. Let's talk about some of your mantras. So I sense the theme of love and hope in your mantras. So I think do you remember the ones you shared with us? Do you want me to read them to you? Yeah, go for it.
Walk in love, right? And basically, in my mind and in my heart, love and God are interchangeable.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Well, that's scriptural. God is love.
100%.
Yeah.
So it moves it from the tangible into kind of like an actionable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like it's a behavior,
it's a being,
feeling, it's a presence.
Yeah.
It's inside of you, and organic. It's all of those kinds of.
It changes you. Yeah.
So walk in love. You're gonna walk in love as Christ loved us. I mean, all kinds of different things. So that's one. Take care of one another, right? And that is actually, well, I'm sure lots of people say that, but I got that from my maternal grandmother. Her name was Belba Kulafeja, the most beautiful lady I'd ever met, and deeply foundational in implanting Christ in my life. But she said that often to people when as when you were departed, right? And that's just always been profound for me. And it's something that I picked up, and it's something that I do, to where when I say goodbye to people, or I say goodbye to couples, or I say goodbye to a father with his family or wherever else maybe, I remind them to take care of themselves, and I tell them to take care of one another. And more often than not, it kind of catches people off guard to where there's like, usually it's like, hey, bye, this, that, and the other. I'm like, hey, just look them in the eye and say, you guys take good care of each other. I mean, it hits different, but.
Well, it's different because you're a priest too.
We need to hear that.
Yeah, we do need to hear it. Yeah.
Because how often, are we being reminded of like, hey, you guys are leaving. Like, as you leave, like, hey, don't forget, like, be good to each other out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Do the next loving thing, right?
I love that one,
because life is just this continuum, right? Like, and inevitably, I mean, how many choices are we confronted with many times? And like, so much of our life is autonomous, right? Like I drove to work, and like, I guess I took Jones, like I got here, you know what I mean? We're not that cognizant of it, but many times throughout the day we're confronted with choice, and when we are cognizant of it, it's brought to our attention, say, well, what do I do here, right? And if you set your parameters to like, hey, I do the next loving thing.
I love that.
Then in that, I know that that is one, how I choose to live. And I also believe 100% that whether it's the best choice or not the best choice, it's the best choice. Does that make sense? Because sometimes doing the next loving thing it's going to make things harder. But
it's the right choice.
And that's what you're gonna do. You know what I mean? And
it's like going the extra mile.
It is, but it's ultimately going to lead to a better outcome long term. Might not be the best short term fix. The easiest thing to do is to do the best short term fix. You know what I mean? Maybe not do the next best loving thing. But at some point you're going to have to. So I might as well just do it, even if it's challenging now. Because if not, I'm just delaying the inevitable.
Well, that's it. It's like how Christ says, if you love me, love one another.
Absolutely. At the end of the day.
As I have loved you, love one another. Yeah. That whole that's beautiful.
And the final thing is just to to see the dignity in every person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? See the humanity in every person, because a lot of that is just like, oh, that it's the us and them, even in privately. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that person, this and the other. You know, you go to a gathering such as the one that we met at. You get in the car and it's just like, oh, well, that person. Did you see that person? And they said this, and they were like that, and this and the other. It's just like, well, you know, they could be saying all those same things about me because, gosh, look at me. You know what I mean? Like, I would imagine that, you know, there's some stuff being shared, but the thing of it is that they're just them. Like, I'm just like me. You know what I mean? And
We're all here.
that's wonderful.
It is wonderful.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. We get to, I want to keep talking to you.
Listen, yeah,
We're gonna do this again.
absolutely. I'd love to.
But I do have a gift for you.
Well, that's
and
very
your
kind of
sweet
you.
wife. It was so fun to watch you two because it was so obvious you were in love. Like,
Well, and just for everybody who's listening, yes, we went earlier in my Nicholas or my Nick. In reality, I'm more commonly known as Brooke's husband. My wife is Brooke Neubauer, the CEO and the founder of the Just One Project. She is the most remarkable woman that I've ever
we need to
met.
have her on the podcast too. I think.
Look, you absolutely need to have her on the podcast because you talk about energy, you talk about laughter, you talk about the do-gooder, innovator, intelligent, wonderful mom, good human, smart, fantastic lady. She's all of those things and then some. And I am so fortunate most of the time to be her husband.
Well, you deserve her because it was awesome.
Look, I do. I've earned that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, she deserves you. It was so cute because that was the thing I noticed in that whole meeting. We're at a governor fundraiser.
That's right.
There's probably 50 people there, and I was like, it's really obvious those two love each other.
But she is very attractive.
Well, so are you. You're both attractive people, but I think it's also not just how you look, but it's also the light. That you
Oh
bring
gosh,
inside each
look,
other.
and it's probably, we tried to quantify it the other night, but maybe 4 or 5 nights a week, we get to laughing so hard. Like after we get the kids to bed and we're just saying, we get to laughing so hard that like my sinuses swell up and like I have to exit the room that we're in. I have to say like, you have to leave me alone for a couple of minutes. Like I have to go blow
Recover.
everything out.
Yeah.
Like I got to go breathe outside. I got to gather myself just to come back in and hang out with her again.
Well, I believe
Yeah,
it.
she's
I
a
believe it.
blast.
I could tell you love each other. So we honor the idea that there are people that have so much light
Oh man.
that that's what we're trying to do here. Lex Lumina, the podcast is Law and Light in Latin.
Oh wow.
So fitting for you because you radiate light. Brooke does too. And so we got you light matching lightsabers
That is very kind.
because you guys are human lightsabers, and you share light.
Look, I'm a child of the '80s, so it's Star Wars.
Dude, right?
Absolutely. Grew
But that's
up
what's
on
so cool is if you have the word inside you.
Listen,
You
you're
have
Luke
the light inside
Skywalker all
you.
the time.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
That's
right.
it. So these are for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
and thank
you.
you so much for
Thanks.
having me. It's
Thanks
been
for
an
being here,
absolute
man.
blessing to
Yeah.
know.
No, you're a rock star.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time today to watch this episode. I love that you enjoy this content. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can spread this across the world and create more light together.